Why Muhammad in particular? Well, I'd read many biographies of him as part of the research for my previous book, After the Prophet. And I could see, as a writer, there was a tremendous story there, just the narrative arc of his life, from the outsider within the inside tribe. He was marginalized, from birth, because his father was already dead before he was born. From there to the ultimate outsider, the exile, thrown out of Mecca, basically. I mean, in Islam it's called the hijrah, the emigration, but really it was exile. To 8 years later being acclaimed in Mecca when he returns to Mecca as the ultimate insider. I mean, what a narrative arc. And it's such a dramatic life. I couldn't quite believe that it had been told so badly in English. All the biographies I read, the contemporary biographies, that is, contemporary of our time, were either devotional biographies, that is, hagiographies, which, unless you're devoutly Muslim, are liable to send you to sleep with greater reliability than most sleeping pills. Or they were sort of very cautious, sort of tiptoeing around the more controversial aspects of Muhammad's life, which, in my opinion, does him no respect. To me, to really respect your subject is to accord them the integrity of a full life lived, to give them the respect of seeing them in full. And this is what I wanted to do with Muhammad. Because everything I'd read about him, I seemed to know a lot about him. I knew this detail and that detail and that date, and it was all dry as old bones and dust, right? I wanted the juice, I wanted the vitality, I wanted to know who this man really was. I wanted to know, in a sense, what it was like to be Muhammad, what he went through, what he experienced. And I wasn't getting that. And then finally I found the earliest Islamic biographies and histories from the 8th and 9th centuries, and they were wonderful. They were full of juice. It was like sitting in the middle of this sort of vast grapevine of Arabian gossip and so on. But they were told in a way that Westerners, drives most Westerners crazy. I happen to love it because I love the Middle East. And I love the Middle Eastern way of storytelling, which is, I suppose you would call it Byzantine. Sort of weaves around and time and place. And there's a logic to it. But it's one that most Westerners can't stand, because in the West we're kind of simple. We like straight, linear storytelling. But I could see there, because there was just such a sense of vitality and of personalities and of place. And I lived for a long time in the Middle East. I worked with Bedouin, for instance, and I love it. I love that sense of place. I love how people talk, and it was coming through in the old biographies in a way it doesn't in the ones from our own time. So I wanted to recreate that. I wanted to be able to see the man in full. Instead of knowing a lot about him, I wanted to be able to see him. And that's why I wrote the book. Basically, it was out of frustration. It was out of frustration with what already exists. There has to be a better way than this. I mean, this is a man who radically changed his world, and to a great extent is still changing ours. A man who carved one of the largest profiles in all of history. And the answer to how come so many of us in the West know so little about him is that it's been so badly written, his life. And I wanted to do justice to it, to write it well, to bring him alive in all his complexity, in all his humanity and his humanness.